I want to make this clear about the false doctrine that's come upon this nation in a massive way. Jesus said, remember the leaven of the Pharisees. I never thought about it, but I would say for probably almost 30 years, there was something that wasn't right to get me free out of this fallen condition. There was not anything whatsoever. And I truly found the cross once I got out of the church system. And I actually got to know God more, and I dealt with sin more. And if it's on a personal level, you're going to have a better chance of finding God. So, I believe a lot of these ministers, they're flattering, they're using people as merchandise, and it's not of God. God's not going to accept it. They're not feeding the sheep. And a lot of the sheep these days are almost ready to die in the wilderness because there is just not truth. And you get a little truth and then you mix it with air. And that's the thing I have to tell people right now. I mean, I like the Old Testament and everything, but we got to be very, very cautious that we're not getting back to mixing it with the truth. You can't mix, and Jesus said, new wineskins and new bottles, which meant the new life. You can't mix the fallen nature together with the life that Christ can give you. You're just never going to be able to get out of Romans 7 to get to Romans 8 and to get that breakthrough that you can have where Christ can take you out of that tomb and that you can see you're dead and wretched and miserable and poor to have such a testimony that he can work in you. And there's so many lies today that are consuming us around the whole world, but there is truth that could set us free to give us wisdom and understanding. That's knowing Jesus. It's knowing him. If you follow someone, you're going to know someone. That's the problem these days. People are following a man. But if you follow Christ, that's the resurrection, then you can do more. It's an anointing. And what's an anointing? Here's what you got to do. You got to see your condition, that you are a sinner, to know that Christ is the one that came and died in your place. But what do we got to do in our part? We need to deal with our sin and go through a cross. And that's going to take everything away from us. We got to die to all that we have. And that's your reputation, the adultery of your ego, central, whatever. It's just, you have to surrender everything that you can to him in order to be able to walk in his image. It has to go. And you cannot be on the fence. I mean, I've been fighting my whole life, I would say, legalism most of my life. Didn't fight legalism much, but a lot of worldliness. But come to find out, the church system can only give you two options. Really, realistically speaking. You could either go through legalism, or you can either go through the world. And you just can't break free because you feel like you're under man. You're trying to amount up to their standards, their agendas, their ordinances, and whatever they want to do in their authority. But I'm under the authority of Christ and his grace. And I don't have to be obligated to these things that people do every week. And to the point, so many people will be left behind because of it. But Christ can set them free. They can be the children of the light. They don't have to be under man. They can be risen. They can go through him as a personal relationship and deal with sin. And he can sustain. Get into the light. See what it says in 1 John. Very much going to 1 John. That this is the message we have heard, that God is light and in him no darkness. Just a little deception can just get you into a huge lie. Just like that. And that's why he says, remember the leaven of the Pharisees. It's a very narrow path. And few find it. But that's not the end. We've got to know that in the last days, it's pretty much anybody that's popular, you pretty much need to stay away from them. Because you cannot walk in the presence of God with having such a reputation. To go out there and to justify yourself. You cannot do that. You got to be dead. And if you're definitely a disciple of Christ, you're not looking for fame. But that's all I have to say. I mean, the church system's infiltrated, and there's no shepherds. And completely in the United States, terrible. I'm sorry, but Billy Graham did not come through. The baby boomer generation, I have a problem. There's a lot of people that are going through a lot of affliction and didn't come through for them. I mean, but that's it. So thank you very much, and I'll chat with you later, y'all.